Welcome back to With the First Pick. This is our Shrine Bowl roster reveal show. That's right. We're unveiling the 2026 Shrine Bowl roster right here, right now. And to help us do that, it's our good friend, Eric Galko, the Shrine Bowl's Director of Football Operations and Player Personnel. Eric, it's I don't want to call it a slog because this is a fun process for us, but how are you guys doing? This roster is fantastic. I can't wait to talk more about it.
Yeah, we're doing great. We're a week away now from players arriving and our first kind of events at the East-West Shrine Bowl this year, too. And every year since I've taken over the last 4 years, we've increased our draft picks, but also increased the quality of the event, too. And this year is going to be our best roster yet, no doubt.
Yeah, and those aren't just words. Like every single year, the roster gets better. More and more guys get drafted. More and more guys get drafted higher. So I'm excited to talk about this. I'm Ryan Wilson. That, of course, is Titans GM Rand Carthon, and the Shrine Bowl ran former Titans GM Rand Carthon, my son, and more than 2 decades in the NFL in front offices, from the Falcons to the Rams to the 49ers. And he played at Florida, Eric, if you didn't know that, because he wants me to hit all his highlights. The Shrine Bowl ran is the granddaddy of all the college all-star games, and alums include names like Hall of Famers Walter Payton and John Elway, of course, Tom Brady, more recently, of course, under Eric's leadership, Brock Purdy, Zay Flowers, and Isaiah Pacheco, and I'm excited to see this year's group. All right, and a quick reminder before we get into this thing, 2026 Shrine Bowl kicks off on NFL Network at 7 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday, January 27th, at the Star in Frisco, Texas. That's the home of the Dallas Cowboys, and practices take place January 22nd through the 26th. Rain and I will be in the With the First Pick RV, and we will be there, and I'm excited for that. All right, let's get to this roster reveal. I'm going to start with the quarterbacks because that's where we always have to start. And we'll go East and West teams, and then we'll break them down a little bit. The East team, these are some dudes. Cade Klubnik out of Clemson, and Baron Morton out of Texas Tech. Fantastic season for the Raiders there. And, of course, Clemson, not the season they wanted, but Cade Klubnik is a guy that's going to garner a lot of interest when he gets to the Shrine Bowl. And before we go on here, we had a little conversation with Cade, and let's go to that right now. All right, we're joined by Cade Klubnik, Clemson quarterback, headed to the Shrine Bowl. Cade, it is good to see you again, sir. You're looking good. You're looking refreshed. I want to ask you this question. And you know, we've sort of talked about this, and I mentioned that I've been through some of your throws this season and how impressive you were on those second-level throws, your deep ball accuracy, your ability to play off structure, and, of course, your ability to run. But when you watch your tape as you've progressed through Clemson the last 2 or 3 seasons, where have you grown the most, and where have NFL teams where do they want to see more growth as you head down to the Shrine Bowl and work your way through the pre-draft process?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I would say I think I've grown a lot in my career. I think the most exciting thing for me though is I feel like I'm really just getting started, and I know that I have a lot to still grow. And I had a great college career, but I'm excited to really step up and go grow in a lot of ways. But I mean, I feel like in my time at Clemson, I grew in a lot of ways. Just being in the same offensive system for a few years definitely helped, and being able to go through my reads, be able to pick apart defenses, going through how to prepare for a week, for example. Just I feel like my routine of a week of film study, my body, everything that it takes to do that. And then when I got to the game, it's like I was able to get through the reads faster, get rid of the ball a little bit faster. And then, like you said, I feel like in the last kind of like year, a big priority to me was something to get better. I was just throwing off platform and being able to make truly every throw on the field, and I believe that I can. And being able to work on no stride throws, and then off platform throws when I need to, and I feel like I gained a lot of ground there. And then in terms of the next level, I think just being really elite at pre-snap and post-snap recognition, what you think you might see pre-snap and then snap the ball, what might happen a second later. So be able to just learn from the best and the best in the NFL and getting to learn from them and how to truly get really, really good at that. And I think that I got my best ball out of me. So
I mean, we're here because you've been selected to play in the East-West Shrine game. We know the career you've had. I actually had the opportunity to hang out with you a little bit over the summer and watch you work. What are you most excited about heading into this next phase of your life, this new phase, this professional phase? What are you most excited about?
I mean, I think for one, as simple as it is, just keep playing the game, man. It's I know there's not many people that they get to be in the situation I am and get to play this long, this game as long as I have already. So just to keep playing the game that I love, but to go be really good at it. I think that I'm not trying to last. I want to really succeed and go be great in this league. And I think just get surrounded by great people and a great organization that will develop me and make me be the best that I can be. And I believe that, and I know it, and I'm just excited to be able to be a part of something like it.
Yeah, Cade, I'll tell you this: like you've been so much fun to watch, and I know the season didn't go the way you wanted to go for you and your Clemson teammates and Coach Sweeney. But the flashes that we saw when you were on were special, and I think you did make those strides from 2024 to 2025. And one last thing I'll leave you with before we let you get out of here: Rand was in San Francisco when they drafted Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy I think had a better the previous season than his last season at Iowa State. And Rand, you can correct me, but he came out slinging it at the Shrine Bowl. And then Rand said it was pretty apparent early on in his practices that this dude wasn't just Mr. Irrelevant. And obviously he is where he is now. Rand, can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, man. I mean, for Brock, it was one of those you saw very early. The guy could make every throw on the field. He was just really smart in his ability to process, pick apart defenses. And one of the coolest things for me was watching him practice because he was on the active roster, but he primarily just ran the scout team stuff. And I remember one day Fred Warner came off the field and he said, if this guy ever gets into a game, he's going to light defenses up. And good enough, his first opportunity to play, which he came in when Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, I think he threw the ball 37, 38 times, shredded the Miami defense and led us to a victory. So you, like you said, you're approaching this the right way. And even me saying that this is one way I wanted to end it, Ryan. Going back to hanging out with Cade and all the guys from Athletes First during the 4th of July weekend, the one thing that was really impressive about Cade, you had C.J. Stroud there, you had Justin Fields, you had other college quarterbacks there. The one thing that I appreciated, was his ability to just soak up information and learn. He didn't come in there as I'm the Clemson quarterback. I know more than all these guys. He was really there like taking instruction. And if you guys hadn't seen it, hit YouTube, search it up. Brian McFadden and I were there, and you could really see Cade Klubnik taking instruction from quarterback coach Quincy Avery, learning how to layer the ball, learning different things, footwork, tightening the footwork, being able to shoulder through, his progression and stepping up in the pocket. So for me, as a talent evaluator, former front office executive, that just showed me that this guy isn't going to come in being cocky, being arrogant. He's going to come in and want to put himself in a position to learn and develop. So salute to you for that, Cade.
Right. Appreciate that. You're spot on.
No, absolutely. And we'll let you get out of here on this. And by the way, if Rand had took a learning like you did in terms of golf, he wouldn't have turned out the way he did when you guys were at
that
top.
Part of the video of him making a complete ass out of me swinging. So yeah, skip that part of the video and go straight to
That's right, because that is on the video. Cade, thank you so much, man. Get back to it. We're so excited to see you next week at the Shrine Bowl. See you ball out there and this pre-draft process. Thank you, man.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, great stuff from Cade there. And let's look at the West roster as well. And again, some dudes, man. We have Joe Fagnano out of UConn, the main transfer, who put up a ton of yards. Dual threat Haynes King out of Georgia Tech, Mark Gronowski out of Iowa, and Miller Moss, transfer from USC to Louisville, who can also sling it. And before we get going and talk more about these quarterbacks, I had a chance to catch up with Haynes King. All right, we're joined by Haynes King, Georgia Tech quarterback, head to the Shrine Bowl. Haynes, it's good to see you, man, and let's get right into this because you have things to do. You just got finished with a workout. I want to ask you, when you look back at your journey from Texas A&M and into Georgia Tech, where's the biggest place that you think you've grown as a quarterback?
I would say the biggest place that I've grown is it's outside of the facility. The past 3 years working with Coach Winkie, he's been big on create a consistent routine outside of the facility, then you'll start playing more consistent in the facility. And then along with that is just really surrounding yourself with the right people, like-minded people that are wired the right way and allow me to compete each and every day.
Yeah, man, you've had some impressive victories at Georgia Tech. It was fun. It was fun as hell to watch you play this year. You're a guy that we highlighted at the earlier part of our season on the show. You made one of our Player of the Week lists. And so with that said, you're training at Exos. You have your personal throwing coach that you're working with, and you've been invited to the East-West game. Talk to Ryan and I about what you're looking to show scouts when you get to the East-West.
I mean, first and foremost, I'm thankful for the opportunity to play in there and to be able to compete. And what I'm looking forward most is really to just showcase my skills. Past two teams that I've played in college, most of it has been in the gun, kind of different, not as much pro style offense and stuff like that. So, but people really don't know that in high school I was a lot under center, play action pass, drop back under center, stuff like that. So just really getting in there and showcasing my ability that I can operate under center in a pro style offense.
You're described as a dual threat quarterback, and I take that as a positive. We know you can run, and that's a big part of what you do, but you can also sling it. And I thought you continue to make progress the last few years at Georgia Tech. How do you balance that? Because I'm sure NFL teams are going to ask you, what do you prefer? How do you want to play at the next level? Because you don't want to be necessarily pigeonholed as just a running quarterback, because you do much more than that. And the growth that you've shown as a passer, and you talk about the differences in high school and college. So when you get those questions, how do you answer those questions?
I mean, really, when you get down to it in football, I hate to lose. I enjoy winning. It's always more fun when you win. But other than that, it's just, watch my tape over the years. I have consistently and continuously been able to improve my passing, whether it's consistent passing, footwork in the pocket, the rhythmic movement in the pocket. But I would start off those two things for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned your quarterback coach. You mentioned the guy that you dealt with a lot, Coach Winkie. For those that don't know, he's talking about former Florida State quarterback, Heisman Trophy winner Chris Winkie. I work with Wink Dog at the Rams, and so I know how tough of a coach he is. What's something that you learned from him that you plan to carry with you to the next level?
It's getting bad over here. But the biggest thing I would say is just, how you carry yourself each and every day. Are you coming in the building trying to get better, trying to compete, make people around you better? And then, he explains to us, the difference between a good leader and a great leader. Good leader, he's just going to, have people that you can get them on board and have them fun and go to and improve and make them better. But a great leader is going to take your team, take the people that's following him to a level where they never could imagine they could be. And those two things right there is just the biggest that's always stood out.
All right, Haynes, go get some lunch, get back to your workouts. Thank you for your time. We will see you next week at the Shrine Bowl. Congratulations, man.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Eric, I love this list. Tell me maybe one of the guys you're most excited to see out of this quarterback class, and perhaps maybe they have the most to prove, or they're under the radar, and maybe fans don't quite yet know who this player could become.
Yeah, for one, I'll make a point that, in case fans are curious on why 2 on the East, 4 on the West, we've got 2 more quarterbacks coming to the East roster. We can't announce them quite yet. Reasons that'll be clear here in a little while, but we've got a great 6 quarterbacks right now. We'll have 8 quarterbacks at the Shrine Bowl this year. I think it's a great mix of quarterbacks this year, depending on what NFL teams want. We've got guys like Mark Gronowski and Haynes King, who have started a ton of games in college, are tough as nails as runners, complete pocket quarterbacks, and guys that, similar to Brock Purdy, can be quarterback 3, quarterback 2, or quarterback 1 in your quarterback room, depending on what you need for them at any given moment. That's what Brock showed at Iowa State and in the draft process, including the Shrine Bowl. I think those guys will show that as well, too. But I think NFL teams are really excited to see guys like Joe Fagnano, who had an unbelievable year this year, got better in his 6th year in college football. Reminds me of Aiden O'Connell, another Shrine Bowl alum, and then Cade Klubnik. I think a lot of NFL clubs, maybe you guys included, know the talent Cade possesses. The Clemson season didn't go according to plan, but this was a guy that many people thought would be a first-round pick coming before the season. And I promise you, Cade didn't get worse as a player. He's the same guy he was when you thought he was a first-round pick. I think he'll show that at the Shrine Bowl and this draft process.
Hey, Rand, before we move on and get to guys' position, the running backs, as I like to call them, you were in San Francisco when Brock Purdy was drafted. Why was he so impressive? And I guess the question is, what can players do based on Brock Purdy's pre-draft process to make themselves more attractive to the NFL teams?
I think it's what a lot of what Eric said. What made Brock so unique when he came into our situation is he was ready. He was football ready. He had played a ton of ball. And I've said this before. He was the one guy. We always hear players say, I'm going to prepare as if I'm the starter. But we know that's it's BS. All right, we know that. But I saw this guy every week on the plane whether he was the second string or third string. He had his call sheet in front of him. He had the laptop in front of him, and he was pouring through film. So when he got his opportunity against the Miami Dolphins after Jimmy Garoppolo went down, he threw the ball 37 times in that game and led us to a victory. And so you knew then, you was like, oh, my God, we may have found something in the 7th round. But, again, it goes to what Eric has said. This guy was ready, played a ton of ball at Iowa State, and then was able to show that in the East-West game.
Love it. All right, let's go to the running backs here. We'll take a look at the East team first. And out of Navy, we have Eli Heidenreich out of UTSA, one of my favorite players in this draft. Robert Henry Jr., he is an absolute burner. Max Bredesen out of Michigan is the fullback. Kentrell Bullock out of USA. And then Chip Trianum out of Toledo for the East team. And Rand, is there a guy here that you have an eye on?
Yeah, man. Robert Henry, man, you love the way this guy runs. He's 5'9", and let's call it 205-ish. I know Eric and his staff will get an official height and weight on these guys, which us as scouts, we always appreciate, going into it. But you're talking about a guy that he runs rugged. Even though he is 205, he runs rugged. And then the most impressive thing to me is his ability to move laterally, his cut explosion. For a guy, he can get in and out of cuts clean and explosively and get from point A to point B. So you love that about him. One thing I really want to see him do at the Shrine game is let's see him catch the ball more. He had opportunities, but, again, to become a complete back, and what scouts are going to want to see is they're going to see a guy that can also catch the ball out of the backfield. Because in pass protection, he'll put his face on you. He'll damn sure try, and that's all you need to see at this point.
All right, I got excited. I mean to cut you off there. Let's go to the West roster for running backs. And we have Roman Hemby, who every time you turn on Indiana, he is running through guys. I'm excited to see him down at the Shrine Bowl. C.J. Donaldson out of Ohio State. Dean Connors out of Houston. Riley Nowakowski out of Indiana is the fullback, but he is so versatile for what they do in that offense as well. And then DeMond Claiborne out of Wake. And Eric, let folks know who don't watch a lot of Wake football what DeMond brings to the table.
Yeah, I think he's one of the most explosive running backs in this entire draft class, full stop. I think this running back class is maybe lacking some top-end guys per NFL scouts right now too, but I think Claiborne's going to show the NFL at the Shrine Bowl this year that he's not only an explosive lateral running back who can make plays upfield, he's a great elusive short area guy, a guy that evades big contact so he can break tackles. He's not a bigger running back, but a guy who doesn't take a lot of big hits. But I think he's going to show at the Shrine Bowl week that he could be a really dangerous pass catcher out of the backfield. This is a really explosive player in space that at Wake, he was relied upon a lot as a runner, and then they had other parts of their passing game they utilized aside from him with their read option game and all of that. I think at the Shrine Bowl, he'll show that, hey, this guy could be a really dangerous receiver out of the backfield. I think he's going to be the top senior running back drafted from this year's draft class. I think one of the first 4 or 5 in the overall class drafted too. With a good Shrine Bowl week, this is a top 100 pick all day.
Love it. Correct me if I'm wrong. Last year, Bill Krosky-Merritt and Rocket Sanders both were at the Shrine Bowl, and both were huge contributors this year for their respective teams. So, again, you may not know some of these names yet. You will definitely know them in 90-something days when there's the NFL draft. All right, let's go to the wide receivers here. We'll start with the East team. Up top, Jalen Waltham out of Incarnate Word. Love it. Kendrick Law out of Kentucky. Kobe Young out of Georgia. Xavier Thomas at LSU. Chris Hilton out of LSU. Dylan Bell also out of Georgia. And finally out of Ole Miss, Deshaun Stribling. Rand, what do you got?
Man, just looking at this whole entire list, I mean, this is a great list. You got the 2 Georgia guys, the 2 LSU guys, and even Stribling. I love Dylan Bell throughout the process. He's just, for everything that you could poke a hole and say that he isn't, one thing I know about Dylan Bell is he's a damn good football player, and that's what he is. I don't know that the position necessarily defines him. And even a guy like Chris Hilton, a guy that didn't necessarily have the numbers as a wide receiver, but has all the physical traits, has all the physical tools. And like we talked about yesterday, Ryan, with these guys and what they have to do if you're the fourth or fifth wide receivers, play special teams. He's going to bring something to the table as a gunner, a guy that can get out there with his elite speed and force those fair catches downfield.
All right, producer Striker, let's take a look at the West squad. Starts with Chase Roberts out of BYU, Jeff Caldwell out of Cincinnati, Eric Rivers out of Georgia Tech, Caden Wetchen out of Iowa, Emmanuel Henderson Jr. out of Kansas. Rand and I have talked about him previously on the podcast, and Malik Benson out of Oregon, and J. Michael Sturdivant out of Florida. And the last, but certainly not least, Eric, I want to get your thoughts on Skylar Bell, who was catching thousands of yards worth of passes from Joe Fagnano at UConn this year. He may be another under-the-radar guy for fans that don't follow Huskies football closely, but this is a really good football player.
Yeah, and I will say it's cool that we've got Joe Fagnano and Skylar Bell again together. Haynes King and Eric Rivers, his receiver, together. Mark Gronowski and Caden Wetchen, his receiver, together. So pretty cool to have these guys play at least one more game together with the same helmet on from their college days. Skylar Bell, I think she won the Blitnikoff Award. And I think it's always so impressive to me when it's very obvious in an offense, especially an offense like UConn, that they had good players, but Skylar Bell was the offense. Every defense they faced said, hey, we got to stop Skylar Bell. And this guy still put up huge yards, huge games, making one-handed catches in double teams, working in the slot, working in the perimeter, working downfield, run after catch in the short area, did everything for UConn this year. And the other guys that were up for the Blitnikoff Award, no offense to them, they had plenty of weapons around them to give them single coverage. Skylar Bell, over 1,000 yards this year, over 10 touchdowns, and a dominant season when everyone's focusing on him as well, too. I think he's going to show at the Shrine Bowl this year that he can be a slot, he can be a Z, he can play some X, and he can be an instant offensive player in the NFL as a starter at a top 100 draft pick.
And the great thing about going to the Shrine Bowl is you can answer those questions. What does it look like when you go up against top tier competition? If you think that's the situation with Skylar Bell, I don't, but that's one more box he can check on his way to the NFL draft. So I can't wait to see him there. All right, let's go to the tight ends. Start on the East team here. Eli Raridan out of Notre Dame, Luke McCree out of USC, Dallin Bentley out of Utah, Jack Endries out of Texas. Rand, you want to talk on Jack? Because we talked about him over the summer and the expectations for him going to that Texas offense.
Yeah, man, I was really excited to see him in this Texas offense coming in this season. I actually had him rated pretty high amongst the tight end group coming into the fall. And we know that the Texas offense didn't get off to the best start, and they started to catch their stride late. And they just had a lot of guys to just get the ball out there. But I think this guy, what you see to him, you see his true speed with the ball in his hands. He's a guy that I think people are going to sleep on how fast this guy is and what he's able to do after the catch. But I really like this guy. And I think I don't see him quite like Gunnar Helm, but I think this guy will be a quality, solid tight end in the National Football League.
And Eric, before we get to the East squad, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so you let me know. Gunnar went in the fourth round. I think you're of the opinion, and NFL teams think Jack could go higher than that.
Yeah, I think when it's all said and done, after the way he plays this Shrine Bowl, the way he tested the combine, like Jack's going to be in a discussion of maybe not the first tight end drafted, but one of the first tight ends drafted in this year's draft class. You go back to that Cal film when his quarterback was Mendoza, and he was a bigger role in that Cal offense. I think he was able to roll things. And in the second half this year at Texas, when him and Arch got going, it was even more impressive there too. So that Cal film, second half of Texas, this guy screamed as an instant playmaker for NFL offense. And again, if he's maybe not tight end 1, but if he's tight end 2 or 3 in this year's draft in the top 100, top 2 rounds, I won't be surprised at all.
Love it. All right, let's go look at the East squad. Producer Striker, Bauer Sharp out of LSU, Seydou Traore out of Mississippi State, Jaren Kanak out of Oklahoma, former linebacker. And by the way, this dude, Jaren Kanak, can run. I think he was like top 5 in the state of Kansas as a sprinter. Rand's got a track background, so he's a little harsher judge than me. But I love the way Jaren Kanak plays, given that he hasn't played a lot of tight end. He will block his ass off, and there's a lot to love about his potential. Can you speak to some of that in terms of what teams are thinking about Jaren Kanak, Eric?
Yeah, I think the fact that he was a first-year tight end, former linebacker at Oklahoma, who ended up being like one of the most important receivers that Oklahoma had this year. I mean, really by game 1, game 2, like he's working in the seam against linebackers and safeties. And I think, being a former linebacker, I think he has some awareness, but that's really hard to do in the SEC. No place of like, hey, he can be a tight end right away too. I think NFL teams see Rand mentioned earlier, the effort as a blocker. It's not all the way there yet. I think Jared would admit that as well too, but he's close and he gives a lot of effort as a blocker. He certainly knows what linebackers want to do to him after he did it for 4 years at Oklahoma. But really, it's the pass catching upside and really innate ability to find spots and zones, to finish away from his frame, to work downfield. I think NFL teams Jared Gainek has like, hey, if he's our H-back, tight end 3 our first year, man, he's our use check plus our tight end by year 2 or 3. I think NFL teams are really bullish on his ability. And you mentioned he's a fantastic athlete.
And Ryan, real quick, I just and to that point with the linebacker background, tight end background, special teams. There's going to be a spot for him. He will be someone's core 4 guy on special teams, and he'll present he'll be the guy that other teams will say, hey, this is the mismatch. We got to find a way to block this guy because of the background, having played linebacker and now playing tight end.
Is he the type of guy, Eric mentioned use check. Is he the type of guy, Rand, that Kyle Shanahan could find ways to use in an interesting way on offense, or is he not quite there yet?
No, he is, because again, when you look at this fullback position in that offense and what they're asked to do, you look at Kyle Juszczyk's body structure. Kyle is 6'1" and probably about 230, maybe 232, somewhere in there. But typically where the scheme has evolved is they're looking for more what they call tight end bodies. Guys that are bigger, that are longer, that now it adds to versatility. If he's in the game, are you treating it as 21 personnel or are you treating it as 12 personnel? How are you going to attack it? If you come out in nickel, then guess what? We can now really run at you because you're treating them like a receiver. Or if you give us the base defense look, if it's base 3-4, base 4-3, then now we can spread them out, and now we could use that and take advantage of you that way.
Love it. He's such a fun player, and I think his ceiling is a long ways away because he's, as we've talked about, just moved to that position. All right, let's go to the offensive line position. We'll start with the offensive tackles on the West squad. Here we go. James Neal III at Iowa State. Garrett DeGiorgio at UCLA. Fa'ali Moe. Hope I got that right. I like to get the young man's name right. And Riley Mallman out of Wisconsin. Out of these names, this is the West squad, excuse me. Out of these names, Eric, any of these guys you excited to see?
I think a lot of these guys on our whole roster, and that goes to Jared Koenig and Eli Heinrich and Navy, who are versatile guys too. A lot of these guys have played both guard and tackle in college. I think Garrett DeGiorgio is one of those guys. He started, I want to say 48 games, maybe more in his college career at both guard spots and both tackle spots. And that versatility for NFL teams is going to be really important because, as Rand kind of mentioned, it's like, how can you find a way to make our roster? That means we're going to draft you. After that, once you're on the roster, anything can happen. I think guys like DeGiorgio, Riley Mallman, who may be an inside guard player as well too, I think NFL teams are really excited about.
All right, next up, what do we have? Producer Striker, the East offensive tackles. Chris Adams out of Memphis. His teammate Travis Burke also out of Memphis. Keegan Trost out of Missouri is incredibly interesting. Amal Wagner out of Notre Dame, the right tackle there. And 2 Ole Miss guys, Diego Pons and Jaden Williams. Rand, who do you want to highlight here? Because I know there's a name that I think you're pretty high on.
Yeah, Keegan Trost was a guy for me that, I just wanted to, and I'm so glad to hear Eric say the guys that have the versatility, tackle guard, because Ryan swears that we try to move every tackle to guard. And what I liked about Keegan is because he played on the edge, he played the right tackle, he's densely built, but his body structure is that of a guard. So it'll be interesting to see down at the East-West this week, if he gets some reps at guard, what's that's going to look like. Because, again, if you've played tackle and you're used to taking that lateral set, it helps you at the guard position if you're able to kick inside. Because these defensive coordinators, they get creative. They want to put guys in the 4-eye technique. And if you've only been guard, that's a foreign set to you to have to open up that wide. And you have to be able to now block your inside and protect your outside shoulder. So having those tackles that can kick inside and play guard is always key.
Eric, is Keegan one of the players that NFL teams are most excited to see next week?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he had a fantastic season this year. Similar to actually Joe Fagnano at UConn. I think those are the 2 guys that I got the most scout calls by early November being like, hey, is this guy on your radar? Because this guy's going to go. And I've got teams anywhere from 2nd, 3rd, 4th round grades on Keegan Trost by midseason, which was not the case in the preseason. He had that strong of a season. He's played a lot of football at the FCS level and now at the Power 5, and obviously Mizzou and the SEC is great competition too. But no doubt teams want to see him at tackle. He's a tackle before he's a guard, I think, for a lot of NFL teams. But I think as a guard, teams have no doubt this guy can be a starting level player at the NFL at a guard spot.
Yeah, he's a Rand is right again. He's a grown man. He's a little older, but grown man strength is grown man strength no matter how old you are. All right, Producer Striker, let's take a look at the offensive line here. Going on the interior. And let's go to the East. Dylan Wade out of Auburn, Micah Morris out of Georgia, Giovanni El Hadi out of Michigan, DJ Campbell out of Texas, Jagger Burton out of Kentucky, and Pete Nigra out of Louisville. Rand, I'll let you start here because there's some dudes.
Yeah, man. Jagger Burton was a guy that when you first turn on the film and I looked up his measurables and I'm seeing him move, I was like, there's no way this guy is 330, 320, 330. I'm like, because he doesn't move like that. So he's a sneaky good athlete. I love the way he's able to slide his feet laterally. And then the one thing that also stood out to me was his grip strength. His ability to lock you in once he's got that grip and then being able to slide and mirror, like I thought that was really impressive. And so, again, this is one of those deals, Ryan, when we get there, this will be a guy that when we get those measurables, I'm interested to see what he's weighing because for him, I couldn't believe he moved as well as he did at 320, 330, whatever he was, or whatever he's listed at.
Incredibly impressive for sure. Do you have something, Eric?
I think Jagger's a great call. I think area scouts liked him. He was not a guy that had a lot of attention preseason, but he is kind of my expectation based off how he moves and maybe how he's underappreciated now. But I think he'll be this year's Mason McCormick, where don't be surprised you see Jagger Burton go in the top 100, be a guy that impressed the Shrine Bowl at center and at guard, and then the combine blows up and we're saying, wow, this is a plug-and-play starting offensive center. And then also I'll give you DJ Campbell at Texas. A lot of NFL teams think, hey, if this guy was 2-3 inches taller, where there's a first-round pick all day long too. He's that talented.
Love it. All right, let's go to the West roster for the interior offensive line. And we have Inez Cooper out of the U, Evan Bernston out of Northwestern, Fiabechi Wiwu out of Oklahoma, Armaj Reed Adams out of Texas A&M, Brian Parker II out of Duke, and Randy and I talked about him during the season, played left tackle at Duke, perhaps moves inside of the next level. And this guy brings his lunch pail, as the old saying goes, Pat Coogan out of Indiana, and Notre Dame transfer. Eric, tell me about this guy, because when you watch him, man, you talk about another surprisingly good athlete who just dominates play in and play out.
Yeah, back-to-back national championship game participant, Pat Coogan, which is crazy. I kind of forgot about that and talked about the day. He's like, yeah, it's my second straight national championship. I'm like, geez, this poor guy. But no, I mean, just tough as nails, has the length. He's not some undersized, unathletic guy. He can move, but he can win without being athletic, which I really appreciate. This is a guy that can just take out a nose tackle head on, finish downfield, work at the second level. He can play multiple spots. He has played multiple spots in his college career. This guy can play, I would think, tackle in a pinch if you're desperate, the way Joe Tooney has in his NFL career as well, to play outside. I mean, he's that talented in space, but I think as a guy who can take on 350-pound nose tackles by himself, like that's what I get most about Pat Coogan.
Yeah, real quick, man.
Yeah.
Real quick, again, it goes to the body structure. If you talk to most offensive line coaches, they'll tell you, bring me tackle bodies. This guy has a tackle body. I think he's a technician. And I'm going to just jump off the roof and say, this is a guy, no matter what round he goes in, I think he could potentially start day one.
I'm with you, man. I won't push back on that. Also, very few people on planet Earth can say they were a center who was the MVP at the Rose Bowl. So he's doing something right. I love it. Only on this Indiana team in 2026. All right, let's now go to the defensive side of the ball. We're going to start on the interior with the defensive lineman here. Let's go to the east side. DeMonte Capehart out of Clemson, Daryl Jackson Jr. at FSU. Two players with huge expectations coming this season, and they lived up to him for the most part. Landon Robinson out of Navy, such a fun player to watch. Brandon Cleveland at NC State, Gary Smith III out of UCLA, and Jackie Marshall out of Baylor. Rand, who do you want to spotlight here?
Yeah, the big fella, Daryl Jackson. I think this is going to be an important week for him. Right, because like you said, he came into the season with really high expectations. They had a strong interior front, and it was three guys really in there. It was the two big fellas, and they had a young freshman in there that came along and made some plays. And so this is going to be a big, important week for him to just put it all together, for him to just have a consistent week, and I think that'll quiet some of the concerns that teams may have.
All right, let's go to the other side of the roster. On the West, we have Dante Corleone out of Cincy. He's been on draft radars for what feels like 3 or 4 years. I'm glad to see him and get a look at him in person. James Thornton Jr. out of Illinois, David Blay out of the U, Caleb Proctor out of Southeast Louisiana, Albert Rigi, out of Texas A&M, Tyler Onyedem out of Texas A&M as well, and David Gusta out of Kentucky. Any guy here that catches your eye in terms of what teams are looking to see next week, Eric?
I think the two A&M D tackles for sure are the two guys that jump out to NFL teams. These guys played a huge role in having guys like Cassius Solid, other players in that Texas A&M defense be successful. Onyedem came from Iowa State, is a pass rusher, can play in space, can play in the 5 technique role. Albert Regis is as impressive as a person and of players you're going to find as a defensive tackle too. I think those two guys will both kind of solidify themselves as at least top 4-round picks, probably top 100 picks as well too. Dante Corleone, certainly been around for a while, as you mentioned, a stout nose tackle. A lot of NFL teams value him greatly. But I'll shout out Caleb Proctor at Southeast Louisiana. And this is a small school player, one of the few FCS guys we have on our roster this year. But this is a guy that's played against top competition before. He had 2.5 sacks against LSU earlier this year. So he showed, again, similar to Skylar Bell almost at UConn, he's the best player in Southeast Louisiana. LSU knew that, and he still had 2.5, 3 sacks. I think he already showed he can go against big competition, but I think a great week here at the Shrine Bowl, plus testing well at the Combine like he will, and this guy's going to shoot up draft boards.
I love it. I love seeing the smaller school guys play well against the Power Four as it is now, and then how that translates to the next level. All right, let's move to the edge rusher position, the pass rushers here. On the east side, we have Wesley Williams out of Duke, Patrick Payton, transfer from FSU to LSU for 2025. Marvin Jones Jr., the son of Marvin Jones, Brian Thomas Jr. as well out of South Carolina, Marvin Jones Jr. out of Oklahoma, I should say, Anthony Lucas out of USC, and then Mason Reiger out of Wisconsin. Rand, who you got?
Yeah, I'm interested to see Patrick Payton. And like you said, the transfer, see him. Really what I want to see is what he's going to weigh and see what his measurables are going to be. I think that'll be a big question for him because, again, this was a guy we talked about over the summer. I don't know if I can't remember if we talked about it on the show, but I know you and I have had conversations about what we're expecting to see from him coming into the year. So that's a guy I'm excited to see and just see him not only – I want to see him in those one-on-ones situations, but also see him in team drills and how he, physically sets the edge.
All right, let's go to the West roster for the edge rushers. George Gumbs Jr. and Tyreek Sapp, both out of University of Rand Carthon, out of Florida there. Aiden Hubbard out of Northwestern. Ethan Burke out of Texas. Malachi Lawrence and Nigel Kelly, both out of UCF. And then Keyshawn James Newby out of New Mexico. Eric, who do you want to highlight here? Because those UCF guys, they can get after it.
Yeah, and I would say number 3, we mentioned Joe Fagnano and Keegan Trost. Malachi Lawrence was one that every NFL scout hit me up on. Is he on your radar? This guy we have a top 100 grade on. From every scout I talked to, as well as the assistant GMs and DPPs, when they got through in November on some of the similar well too, teams are really excited about Malachi Lawrence. He's big, long, athletic. He finishes in the backfield when he does generate pressure, which is so valuable for edge rushers. Now, I think NFL teams are most excited about him. But I would say for this edge group, our last edge group, every one of these guys was a first-wave NFL Combine invite. Every one of these guys, NFL teams think are draft picks. So I think whoever is the best of both of these groups is really going to rise up boards because these are all going to be, at worst, somewhere in the early part of day 3. And the best 2 or 3 will definitely rise up to be a top 2-3 round pick.
Love it. Malachi Lawrence was a lot of fun to watch this year. He's long. I think he has, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, I think he has verified 35-inch arms. If not, it's close to that. So
we'll confirm next week.
We'll confirm next week. So
sources.
Stay tuned. I love it. Good call there. All right, let's take a look at the East roster for the off-ball linebackers here. Red Murdoch out of Buffalo, one of my favorite players in this draft class as an unheralded guy. He was so much fun to watch. Jaden Duggar out of Louisiana. Harold Perkins Jr. out of LSU. Had a strong season after suffering that ACL. Wes Weeks out of LSU. Whit Weeks' brother, Landon Barton out of Utah. His family, Cody Barton's his brother, long list of athletes coming out of his family. And Torian York out of Texas A&M, another young man we talked about over the summer. Rand, you want to hit on Harold Perkins Jr. here?
Yeah, man, this is going to be a big week for Harold. Just figuring out what position is he. He's such a chess piece for them. He's played in the secondary. He's played on the edge. He's played off ball. It'll be a big week because, I know Eric talks to a lot of these teams. Teams will want to probably see him at every one of those spots to really try to figure him out. I know there's also been some concerns about his weight, so that'll be interesting to see where he weighs in. But this is a dynamic football player. I actually had a scout reach out to me this week and say, man, can you imagine this guy in a Washington Commanders type defense that takes advantage of the versatility of these players? And you mentioned it even on one of the shows where we were talking about the Carolina Panthers, Ryan, where you talked about in that defense, they need to have another movable chess piece type of guy. This is that type of guy. So I know he'll have a lot of eyes on him. There'll be a lot of coaches, a lot of scouts around those linebacker drills trying to figure out exactly where to place Harold Perkins Jr.
And I think one thing on Harold is, I always talk about, are these guys tweeners, neithers, or boths, right? Like, is he a tweener? Is he between two spots? Neither. He's, can't really give either NFL level. I think Harold's going to be at both, and he'll show up the Shrine Bowl this week. He'll work at linebacker in team drills at probably Sam and Will. He'll go against tight ends and running backs and pass coverage drills, but you'll see him in the one-on-ones going against offensive tackles as well, too. I think he'll show NFL teams, hey, he can do all of those things. And I think to Grant's point, there are a couple NFL teams, especially that I get excited about thinking, hey, for those teams, Harold Perkins should be a first-round graded player because he can really change the identity of your defense with how he can do so many different things.
That's a good
and
point.
I want to throw this out there too, Ryan.
Yeah.
And I hope, Harold, I'm looking directly in the camera. Harold, I hope you see this because I still have it written down. You told me 2 years ago at Pro Day that when you came out, you were going to run really fast. I'm not going to say the time. You and I know the time. I want you to remember that, and we still have our bet on that.
All right. Hopefully, we'll get a chance to speak with Harold down at the Shrine Bowl, and we can run that by him. See if he remembers. Incidentally, I was at that LSU Pro Day. Rand didn't say hi to me then, but that's okay. That's the conversation.
I didn't like you then. Don't like you now.
I appreciate the honesty. No matter the faces change GM wise next to me in the chair, the results are the same, Eric, and that they typically aren't very fond of me by the time it's all said and done. All right, let's look at the West roster here. The linebackers, producer striker here, Jake Golday. We've been talking about Jake, man, since late summer, early fall out of Cincinnati. Carson Shearer out of Iowa. Wesley Basant out of Miami, out of the U there. Eric Gentry out of USC. He's 6'6" all day long, and he plays like he's a rolled up safety looking to blow somebody up. Jimmy Roller out of Michigan and Jackson Kuwatch out of Miami. Eric, I'll ask you about Jake Golday because he's a fun story. Former edge rusher, Arkansas State, I believe, transfer, and then he's translated that into some big time football in the fall.
Yeah, I know NFL teams maybe are devaluing linebackers a little bit more and more, but this is a first-round player in my opinion. I mean, he's 6'4" long. He can play multiple linebacker spots. He has experience rushing the passer. He's also translated that well to being an off-ball linebacker who can rush the passer in the A and B gap. And as a coverage player, he has the length to make up for it, but he's shown the development there, excuse me, to be a guy who can match up against tight ends, to work and cover too, and work downfield as well too. I mean, this guy is, I think, a core part of your defense for any NFL defense. And again, I know I'm biased. He's my guy, but this screams to me like a first-round pick for a playoff team. Someone almost Devin Lloyd and what he's done for his defense as a first-round pick and be a guy who can play in coverage, work off the edge, and be a starting linebacker. He's one of the most impressive linebackers in this year's draft class overall.
Yeah, he's going to be fun to watch in those one-on-one drills and 7-on-7 for sure. All right, let's move back a little bit into the secondary here. Let's look at some cornerbacks here. First up on the E squad, Brent Austin out of Cal, Devin Marshall out of NC State, Marcus Allen out of UNC, Devonta Smith out of Notre Dame, teammates out of Toledo, Avery Smith and Andre Fuller, and then Jared Washington out of South Carolina State. Eric, tell us about the Toledo guys that are going to be in the Shrine Bowl.
Yeah, awesome to have those guys play one more time together as teammates. And those guys couldn't be more different as prospects. Avery Smith is the twitchy guy who can play nickel and outside. Great ball skills, great ability to kind of work in the short area, especially. I think NFL teams see him as a plug-and-play NFL nickel right away. And then Andre Fuller is kind of the yin to his yang. He's the 6'2", 205 freak athlete who's going to run the 4.4s at the combine and really impress physically as a press corner and a guy who can work downfield with his length as well too. So those two guys can play well in the NFL together as a nickel and an outside corner, but two guys that played off each other really well at Toledo. And hey, we saw Quinyon Mitchell, what he's done as an NFL player coming from Toledo with the Eagles, being a big part of their success. I think both these guys look up to Quinyon quite a bit, and hopefully they can capture some of that momentum that he brought a couple of years ago.
Yeah, Toledo has a history of getting guys drafted, and those dudes can typically ball out. All right, let's look at the West cornerback roster. We have Amari Harvey out of Georgia Tech, Sayer Wright out of Nebraska, Tyreek Chappell out of Texas A&M, Jalen Gilbo out of Texas, and then Damani Jackson out of Alabama. And Eric, I want to ask you about Damani because there were some high expectations on him coming into the season. He was benched for a while. He bounced back. He is, when you build a cornerback, he looks like Damani Jackson. What are teams wanting to see from him next week in terms of continuing to help his draft stock?
Yeah, I think they want to see consistency all week long. I think in Alabama in his career, he's shown the athletic upside this year. They have a lot of talent in Alabama, and he kind of had to play in a rotation a little bit this year because of how he was playing. But I've talked to Damani, and this is a guy that is ready to be a dominant corner at the Shrine Bowl this week. And I think a week of practice where he is shutting down all of our great receivers he'll go against all week long, and teams going to be like, let's not overthink this. This guy was a first-round pick coming into the year. He's still that kind of talented player. We get this guy in the third round. What a huge discount if he lasts that long either, too. So I think Damani Jackson having a big week at the Shrine Bowl can kind of remind NFL teams on the same level of talented play you saw before. Throw this kind of season out a little bit. This is the guy that can play in the NFL tomorrow and be a starting level corner with ideal height, weight, speed to boot.
Absolutely. All right, let's go look at the safeties here. First up, The East roster: Dalton Johnson out of Arizona, Miles Rouser out of ASU, DQ Smith out of South Carolina, Cole Wisniewski out of Texas Tech, and then Bishop Fitzgerald out of USC. And Rand, speak on Mr. Bishop Fitzgerald there.
Man, you talk about a guy that plays with a lot of urgency, man. He's just always flying around, and he's a guy that just knows how to tackle and get the guy on the ground. And so I'm excited to really see him in person. He's another guy that if you ask around and you talk to NFL scouts, they really like this guy. They see this as a guy that most people aren't talking about, and he will qualify in what we've done, that sleeper. He will qualify in that sleeper range right now. But I think after spending a week at the Shrine Bowl, he'll, like Galko's talked about with some guys, he'll move up some draft boards after this week.
All right, let's take a look at the West roster for the safeties. We have Miles Scott out of Illinois, Lewis Moore goes by Lou out of Indiana, Jalen Husky out of Maryland, Robert Spears Jennings out of Oklahoma, Ahmad Moses out of SMU, and Austin Brown out of Wisconsin. Lou Moore caught my attention. Eric, any other names here that you want to highlight?
Yeah, I mean, fantastic season for Moore and the production. I think he has 5 interceptions so far on the season, right? And he'll maybe have more in the championship game to seal for them too. I think this group is a mix of some really hard hitters like Robert Spears Jennings, guys like Ahmad Moses who are going to be safety nickel hybrids, and then 2 guys in Jalen Husky and Austin Brown who will have great Shrine Bowl weeks, but watch them fly at the combine and the 4.4s, or hopefully even faster than that too, and have these guys even be more valuable NFL teams as core 4 special teams guys. But there's a really strong group. All these guys, again, expect all of them not only to be drafted, but show NFL teams that they can be third safeties at worst as rookie players.
Again, I cannot wait to see these guys all together at the Shrine Bowl. One of the great things about the Shrine Bowl is that you are right on top of these guys at practice, and that's a rare occasion for folks in the media. Rand is used to it. He's always, when he's traveling around scouting guys back in the day, he got to see these guys up close and personal, making bets with Harold Perkins. I didn't get that opportunity. And look, Eric, one thing that Rand gives me a hard time about a lot of things, but he says that I don't recognize specialists. We are going to recognize some specialists here.
Let's go.
Because that's what we do. So here we go. On the west side, kicker Trey Smack out of Florida. I mean, with a name like Trey Smack, Rand, you got to be a kicker, it feels like. Tyler Dzonski out of Penn State. Shout out to producer Stryker. We have a Penn State player on the roster for an all-star game after a tough season. Tommy Doman out of Florida. And then on the east side, shout out to Syracuse, Jack Stonehouse out of the Q, Scarson Grimes out of BYU, and Dominic Zavada out of Michigan. Rand, you said you might have a comment on one or two of these guys.
I got to comment on all of them, Ryan.
Let's go.
And so starting with Trey Smack, go Gators, of course. That goes without saying. But this guy, he does have a big leg. And if you look at in the standard NFL football right now, if you're not able to kick a 56-yard field goal, then people not even want to talk to you at this point, because it feels like every week you get a good return, and then you just need 15 more yards, and then now you're attempting a field goal. Trey Smack he's in this season alone, he was 5 for 6 from 50 plus. And like I said, he has a career long of 56 yards, so he has a big leg. Tyler Dzonski from Penn State, the Fighting Strikers, he has very good size. A lot of these long snappers tend to be in that 6'1" to sometimes 5'11" range. This guy is 6'4". He has size. And the one thing that stood out to me the most about him was he does have above average speed to cover and get downfield and cover. But the one thing that stood out to me was his snaps on his short snaps on the field goals. The fact that he can spin it where the holder doesn't have to spin the laces. He can give you the ball with the laces out. I think if you look at that and pay close attention to that, he was really good there. Then Tommy Doman, you love his size. You typically want your punters to be of the taller variety, so you love his size. He was a transfer from Michigan into Florida. He had a 44-yard punt average on the year, and he had 2 71-yard punts, one at Michigan, one at Florida. So he has a big leg. So shout out to him. And then moving on to the east.
Here we go.
Jack, no, I'm sorry. I get excited talking about the specialist. Jack Stonehouse was a guy that had a 45-yard average, had multiple 60-yard punts over his career. So he's another guy with a strong leg. Garrison Grimes was an interesting guy to me to watch as a long snapper. He has adequate size. He has good velocity on his snaps. He has the speed to get down. The short accuracy to me was a little off in terms of his field goals. You saw him putting some in the body, some in a little bit of places, nothing too alarming. But the thing that made it interesting to watch was the long snaps on the punts because they ran that rugby style system. When you're watching those snaps, you don't know sometimes if they're leading the punter into the roll to roll left or right. But he was always able to place the ball out in front if they were rolling to the right to get the rugby kickoff, or he was able to put the ball in the belly for those straight ahead punts. So that was cool there. And then Dominic Zavada from Michigan, another big leg guy, another guy with multiple field goals from 56 yards. And over the course of his career, he was 11 or 13 from 50 plus. So again, what NFL teams are looking for these kickers to be able to make these big kicks. There you go.
Love it.
From the specialist. I bailed you out, Ryan.
You 100%. Eric, a couple things. Number one, I had to look this up, but excuse me, Jack Stonehouse, my Syracuse guy, his cousin's Ryan Stonehouse. And I think you know Ryan well, Rand. And the other thing is this podcast we've been doing over two years. No, we've been doing it for 3 years, well over 300 episodes. The time Rand spent on talking about these specialists here is way more combined than we've talked about any specialists ever in the history of this podcast. So Rand, that, sir, is why you are you. I appreciate that. Do you have anything to add about that? Is there anything left to say about the specialists?
No, I hope people took notes. Take notes at home about how to evaluate special teams, because that was a masterclass by Rand too. Only thing I'll say is we had the highest drafted kicker in the last decade, Jake Moody, come from the Shrine Bowl after a great year as well. And then we also have the NFL record holder for longest field goal ever, Cam Little, played in the Shrine Bowl. Dom Zavada, I think Rand said, at 11 for 13 for his career from 50 plus. I can see him making 60-yard field goals at practice this year as well too. So I think Zavada and Trace Mack, both those guys, not only draft picks, but they're going to be considered among the best kickers in this year's draft. And guys seem to going to have a Cam Little-like effect too. So love the specialist talk. Appreciate it, Rand.
That was hardcore. That's a deep dive right there. That was great. Thank you, Rand. I appreciate you as always, sir. All right, that's it. The 2026 Shrine Bowl reveal show is a wrap. Congrats to Eric and your staff. You guys did a fantastic job, and Rand and I will be there next week. Cannot wait.
Let me say this.
Yeah.
And this is an ode to Eric. And I'm not just saying this because we're on, and I would say this, and I'm actually saying this on camera, so it's recorded and you can hold me to it. I'm not so sure that this isn't one of the best top to bottom rosters in all of the All-Star games that we're going to see. And I'm just going to throw it out there. Maybe we'll get to this point. I don't know. Maybe we get to a point where we take the best from the East West and we play the other bowl games. You know what I mean? And to kind of just, for guys like Eric, so you can walk away and pound your chest.
Yeah.
Like, I'm that guy for this year. But Eric, I think you did a hell of a job, man. When we got this list, when we got this roster, with the work Ryan and I have put in since May, and looking at some of these guys, a lot of these guys, and you said it, Eric, a lot of these guys are top 100 picks. And that's an ode to you and your staff and what you guys have been able to build over the years of you taking over. I personally don't see this as a second-rate all-star game. This is near the top, and I think you do a hell of a job of being able to allow scouts to answer questions that they have.
I appreciate that, Rand. Appreciate you guys for doing this and hosting this event too. We're proud of this event. Our whole staff at Shriners Children's and our scouting staff has done a great job, and every single getting a little better too. But this is no doubt our best roster we've had too, and hopefully a handful of first-round picks. And hopefully you guys agree when you guys get down there next week.
Yeah, no, it's always great. Eric has always been incredibly gracious to me, and I always love talking to him. And I'm glad we had the chance to get him on here. This was a fun show, and highlighted, of course, by the specialist conversation, because no one saw that coming. Again, Eric, congratulations to you and the staff, man. You guys did a fantastic job. And a quick reminder, 2026 Shrine Bowl kicks off on NFL Network at 7 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday, January 27th, at the Ford Center at the Star in Frisco, Texas. And as I said, Rand and I will be there next week for practices. Cannot wait for that. Thanks for joining us. We will see you guys in the next one.